Welcome to Real Shame. It's a twice a week show where we review movies from our list to shame or from our movie blind spots. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week we're reviewing a couple of tough guy movies and some black and white movies. And the first movie we're going to review is Casablanca, starring who's that?
Some guy.
Yeah, some guy named Humphrey Bogart.
Some guy.
But before we get into that, kid, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. So, Andy, what have you been watching?
So last time we shot episodes, I was kind of making my way through the Bond movies, and at that point, I had reached second movie Roger Moore did called Man with a Golden Gun. I've now moved on all past the Roger Moore movies, past the Timothy Dalton movies, which he only did two, and am now in the Pierce Brosnan Bond era.
Yes.
And I'm actually just finished the second Pierce Brosnan Bond movie, which is Tomorrow Never Dies. Also has Michelle Yeoh and Jonathan Pryce as the villain.
And Garbage as the who did the theme song, which is awesome.
Is it Garbage? I thought it was Sheryl Crow.
Oh, maybe
Garbage is The World Is Not
The
Enough.
World's Not Enough
Yeah,
is the next one.
You're getting ahead. Yeah, you're ahead by one movie. But no, it's been a pleasure kind of revisiting these Bond movies. I'm seeing, again, I mentioned this the last time I talked about it, seeing them in 1080p, looks great. And it won't be long before they're all in 4K. They've already got the Daniel Craig movies in 4K. But I don't have copies of those. I just have the 1080p. But this is good enough. I mean, again, they look really great. I'm seeing things or noticing things that I didn't notice before, things I thought were cool. I now think are stupid. Things I thought were stupid, I now think are cool. So I'm definitely, seeing some shift in kind of which movies I prefer and which, whatever. I know people are always like, well, who's your favorite Bond? I think that's a tough question to answer because I think they all kind of have their strengths. I think even George Lazenby, the guy that only did one Bond movie, I actually liked that On Her Majesty's Secret Service quite a bit. And I kind of wish that he would have been given the opportunity to do more Bond movies. But apparently...
Did it just bomb?
Well, yeah, I don't know how it did, honestly, at the box office, but he quit because... From what he said, they treated him as just a pretty boy and they wouldn't let him have any creative input. And he tried to actually want to, hey, what if we do this? And they were like, shut up and just do what you're told. And he was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm like, screw you.
I'm out.
So he left because he continued acting after that. And he's in plenty of stuff after that. Just never did another Bond movie. But I even like, a lot of people are like, Timothy Dalton. I like those Timothy Dalton movies. They're pretty good.
So gun to your head, do you have a favorite movie for each Bond, or can you say some Bonds are better than others?
I think I can easily pick out a favorite movie for each Bond, and I can definitely tell you what I think the worst Bond movie is. At least out of the ones that I've rewatched so far, the worst one I think is Moonraker. Out of all the Bond movies,
really?
I think Moonraker is
with Jaws.
Yeah, it's the second movie with Jaws, but they, to use I guess a video game term, or maybe it's not just video game, they nerfed Jaws for the second movie. He becomes like a good guy, and he gets like a girlfriend, and it's just stupid. Because he's in The Spy Who Loved Me. That's the first appearance of Jaws, and then he's in Moonraker. In The Spy Who Loved Me, he's a bad guy, and he's got the teeth, and he doesn't have a girlfriend. Yeah. Whatever. Not that
girlfriends make you soft, guys.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I just feel like
Humphrey Bogart believes that, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
I feel like they said, okay, Jaws was really popular in Spy Who Loved Me, so let's bring him back for Moonraker. But this time, let's give him a love interest. And I was like, you don't need to do all of that. And he's not a main character. And actually, from what I read anyway, they were going to bring him back for the next Bond film, which was For Your Eyes Only, but they just ended up scrapping that idea, so he never came back.
Because, what do you do after you give someone a girlfriend?
I guess they could have got married and had little kids with little metal teeth.
So you're closing...
The kids all would have been 7 feet tall.
Yeah. So you're closing up on your Bond marathon. You got a couple of Pierce Brosnan left, and then on to Daniel Craig.
Yep. And the Daniel Craig, I'll be seeing Spectre for the first time because I actually have not seen it. And unfortunately, we can't watch No Time to Die until, I guess, 2021. I think it's been pushed back until next year. So, oh well. Have to wait.
We'll revisit this when you're done watching them, but it sounds like you're making good progress. And then I will ask you to at least give me a top couple Bonds you like.
And I'll rank my favorite Bond girls at the same time. All right, what about you?
All right, so Kirby and I sat down one rainy weekend. I don't know if it was rainy. And we watched the entire Matrix trilogy. And...
What about the Animatrix?
No. Oh, the movie, the live action movie.
So no Animatrix.
I do have the Animatrix. I've seen the Animatrix. And the first Matrix movie is awesome. Still is very
Love
cool
it.
and still
Yeah.
very awesome.
I've seen it fairly recently too. I
Yeah.
still love it.
The second Matrix movie, I remember liking it. I remember people not giving it a fair shake, but man, this movie's not good. The quality drops off that. It does have some of my favorite fight scenes. Like I like the fight in the chateau, where it's that in the grand foyer kind of the chateau. And he's jumping up and down. I think that's cool. I like the fight that Neo has with Ghost, to talk to the Oracle and stuff like that, where it's like they're on top of tables. And I do kind of like the idea of the freeway stuff,
I remember that.
but the movie's not great. And the third one is even worse. They're not great. And they're filming, or they were before the pandemic, filming a fourth one. And I have no interest in seeing the fourth one now.
I mean, I'm definitely going to see it, but
yeah, no, I don't.
But I didn't ask for it. I mean, I don't care. Just like I didn't ask for another Bill and Ted, but I'll definitely see it.
I will see another Bill and Ted in theaters. The Matrix movie, unless it's got good reviews, I will skip it probably in theaters at least.
I'd probably go see it in theaters, but for $5.
You might drag me into it.
Matrix, I totally agree with you. The first film, absolute amazing film, really great. And having watched it within the last year or two myself, still really, really awesome. I hated the second film. I saw it at the theater, and I hated it. And I was with some friends that liked it, and they thought I was just being a hater. And I was like, no, I really, really wanted to like this film, and I really, really love The Matrix. This movie sucked. And they were like, you must have been watching a different movie. I mean, they couldn't get why I didn't like it. But now it's like I talk to some of those same guys and they feel the same way. They're like, yeah, it sucks. And same, I agree with the third movie as well. And I remember very little about the second or the third because I've only seen them one time a piece. I think I saw the second one in the theater and I hated it. I've never seen it since. The third one, I didn't think I saw it in the theater. I think I saw it on DVD or something and I hated it. And I was like, I don't even want to watch these again.
It feels like in those other two, the Wachowskis doubled down on things they thought the audience enjoyed or things they thought clicked with the audience. And it didn't. Like they went all in on the CGI stuff, and that stuff just doesn't hold up anymore. It barely held up when it came out. And the first Matrix, relies a lot on computer graphics, but it does it so well and does it so sparingly that the movie just looks great and still looks great to this day. And the other thing is they doubled down on the whole philosophy and mystery and all that kind of stuff. Like they wanted to show how Neo was the one, but was he necessarily the one? He was one of six, spoiler alert, and how this whole system works. And at that point, you're like, I don't care. Like the interesting thing was watching the hero's journey for Neo. And yeah, there's a little bit of, theology in there and a little bit of, philosophy built into that one. And, some hints of that stuff. And that's cool. And it makes it, unique in the storytelling, and it kind of gives you a little bit of morsels to kind of dig on. But then the other movies just kind of went all in on that stuff. And at the end of the day, if you don't care about the characters and you don't care about what they're doing, then wanting to know about how this whole thing came together just doesn't matter. And, too much computer graphics just made it look bad. That's my opinion. So, we'll probably end up seeing Matrix 4 because we can see movies together, and if you go see in theaters, I'll always go with you. The other stuff I watched was, we talked about in our camp movies, we talked about my favorite camp comedy. So I saw
Camp Nowhere.
It's Camp Nowhere, and I saw it was on Disney Plus.
Oh.
So I watched Camp Nowhere. For me, this is a big nostalgia hit, so I'm not super critical on it. There's a couple things where you're like, ooh, like nowadays, like looking at it as an adult, seeing what all these kids do, but it is still a fun romp.
I still need to see it. If it's on Disney Plus, I guess I could check it out.
And Christopher Lloyd is like, he's the adult in it, but sometimes you're like, he's not really. There's some times where you're like, oh man, he should be the adult and like actually be like, no, this is not the right way to do it. And then he makes his love interest in the movie, but that's kind of weird too. But we'll cover that because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay.
And the last thing I watched, and I think this is on my list, so I'm sorry that we watched it. But the movie review site that I read the most is Slash Film, and they're doing these quarantine editions because we're still under the pandemic here in the United States, and while we're shooting this, And so each, I think, week or so, they write up a movie that you should watch on streaming. That's one of their core teen movies that they recommend. And this movie I've heard good things about, never watched it, and decided after reading that article that I should watch it, and it was Romancing the Stone.
Oh, okay.
And there's 3 movies in the Romancing the Stone trilogy. There is Jewel of the Nile, I think, and then something Wild Roses.
Well, that's War of the Roses.
War of the Roses.
It stars Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, but it's not actually part of that trilogy.
I think it's
no, it's totally different.
IMDb
totally.
led me wrong because
that is not true.
Wikipedia led me wrong.
Those are the 3 movies that those 2 starred in. Michael Douglas and Danny DeVito is also well, maybe he's not in all 3. Is he? I think he's in all 3. Okay, but War of the Roses is not related.
Okay, well those aren't
IMDb lied like a dog, but yes, Jewel of the Nile is the second one.
But I've only watched Romancing the Stone, and this movie is awesome.
Yeah,
it is so good. It's fun. They called it a sexy adventure, and it is.
Don't read Pauline Kael's review of Romancing the Stone.
Oh, really?
As I seem to remember, because I've been reading some film kind of critics review books, and Pauline Kael shit on everything. Honestly, I love Pauline Kael, but she shit on everything. Well, she's been dead for about 20 years, but she shit on Romancing the Stone.
I thought it was cool.
But I like it. Yeah,
I don't see Michael Douglas as I see him more as like the Wall Street kind of guy, like slick back hair, suit. So it's kind of interesting seeing him more as the jungle adventurer kind of thing. But I thought it was a very cool movie. I want to see Jewel of the Nile. Kirby tells me it's horrible, so we did not watch it. But I might watch it because I like that kind of. I love the like we said, Indiana Jones and the Search for the Holy Grail. Was it? Is my favorite Indiana Jones movie, and I think I just got
the Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade, yeah. Ugh, what's going on? The Last Crusade is like one of my favorite movies. I love the kind of Indiana Jones action adventure kind of thing. So this was kind of like in that niche, and it kind of reaches that itch for me.
Yeah.
To mangle a lot of words.
I could see that. I've actually, strangely enough, rewatched Romancing the Stone within the last few years, and I still think it's fun. Yeah. I don't think I rewatched Jewel of the Nile, but I saw it a long, long time ago. I probably should.
So, those are what I've been watching.
I got to jump in one more time on the Matrix stuff, but it's not related. It's not the Matrix movies, but it made me think of the Matrix. What is it? Revolution. Which one's the second one? Reloaded.
Reloaded.
The second one, and then Revolution's the third one.
Yep.
Both terrible. What was also terrible was there was it was called Enter the Matrix video game, which came out for the original Xbox and probably the PlayStation 2 or something. That was a terrible game because it was riddled with bugs. I remember getting stuck in walls and all kinds of stuff. Playing Enter the Matrix. That's a terrible game. And then the other video game that came to mind is, did you ever play Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Yes.
That was a fun game.
Wasn't it like cursing in it and stuff like that?
Yes, that was a fun game originally. I think it was originally for the Nintendo 64, but it has a level where they do the Matrix shootout in, I guess, what is it, the bank or where are they at? Where they're all wearing their black.
They're like in the lobby of the lobby of the save.
So there's Conker's Bad Fur Day pays tribute to that in one particular level, and it was so much fun playing it back in the day. I don't know how it would hold up today, but I thought that was so much fun back then. Anyway.
I bought an Xbox to play the Chronicles of Riddick game. I was so hyped for that movie. And I didn't see, was it Dark Fear, or what was the first movie?
Pitch Black.
I didn't see Pitch Black, but for some reason, like, I wanted to see the Chronicles of Riddick movie, and I wanted to play the game, so I bought an Xbox, and I bought the game just so I can kind of, like, play it. It's crazy.
Cool.
I don't remember liking it.
Alrighty. So, moving on. We are going to talk about Casablanca.
White House.
Let's get into it.
Well, you were asking about Rick, and here he is. Mademoiselle, may I present...
Hello, Ilsa.
Hello, Rick.
Oh, you've already met Rick, Mademoiselle. Well, then perhaps you also...
This is Mr. Laszlo.
How do you do? How do you do? One hears a great deal about Rick in Casablanca. And about Victor Laszlo everywhere. Won't you join us for a drink?
Oh, no, Rick,
Well,
never.
thanks, I will.
Well, a precedent has been broken. Emile?
Okay, so... Play it again, Sam. It's one of the most iconic quotes ever said. Unfortunately, it's not actually said in this movie.
Yes,
the line is, play it, Sam, play as time goes by. But there's plenty of other quotable lines that originate from 1942's Casablanca. It was based on an unproduced play called Everybody Comes to Rick's, which was, I didn't write down the two people that wrote it, but it was sold to Warner Brothers for $20,000, which adjusted for inflation is like huge as of our dollars today. But $20,000 for a play that actually was never produced, it was just written, but they liked it so much that they made it into a movie. Of course, it stars Mr. Bogey himself, Humphrey Bogart. I'm not going to do a bad imitation.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah, here's looking at you, kid. It stars Ingrid Bergman, Swedish beauty. Ingrid Bergman is Lisa. Sorry, not Lisa.
Ilsa, right?
I'm dyslexic. Ilsa Lund. Humphrey Bogart is Rick Blaine. He owns Rick's Cafe Americain in Casablanca, of course, which is controlled by the Vichy French, but has a lot of German presence because it takes place, the movie takes place in December of 1941, which, of course, December 7th, 1941 was when the U.S. Got attacked in Pearl Harbor and launched them kind of into the war. But this is right at the beginning, and they don't ever mention Pearl Harbor in this movie that I remember, but it is December 1941. It just doesn't say exactly what date. But basically, Humphrey Bogart he's kind of he was a former gun runner and fought in the, I think, Spanish Civil War, something like that. I probably should have written that down. But he has now settled in Casablanca. He owns this cafe. He's fled from Paris, where he knew Ingrid Bergman or Ilsa Lund beforehand, and now she comes waltzing back into his life. But this time, she's got a husband by the name of Victor Laszlo, and everybody is out to get Victor Laszlo.
That's right.
The basic problem in Casablanca is, will Rick help them? Will he not help them? He doesn't stick his neck out for anybody, so we'll see. But anyway,
he also doesn't drink with anyone.
He doesn't drink with any of his customers, but obviously, in deciding on this movie is a movie that you had never seen.
Nope.
This Casablanca is right up there with Citizen Kane. It's usually ranked as possibly the greatest film of all time. I mean, honestly, if you look at most, at least older critics' film lists, it's either going to be Citizen Kane in the number one slot or Casablanca in the number one slot. And if it's not in the number one slot, it's in the number two slot. So, I mean, it's just one of those films that is obviously timeless, been around forever, classic film. But did you think it was a classic film?
Well,
Uh-oh.
I actually really liked it.
Okay, good.
I thought it was good. No, I thought it was a good movie.
It is good. I agree.
I thought it's well paced. My only really big criticism on that is I wish we spent more time with Rick and Elsa. And I actually am going to say I wish it was longer.
Really?
Because I feel like we spend a lot of time setting up the movie, and you see, you see Rick and running his bar, and you see how everything's going in Casablanca, and that's all cool. And then you see Elsa come in, and then with Victor Laszlo, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of Casablanca, because get the papers and all that kind of stuff. And we get flashbacks of Rick with Elsa, and you kind of get their backstory. But I just wish there's more screen time with them in Casablanca, and I wish there was more time watching Rick seeing Rick deal with the decision he wants to make with them. I feel like he makes the decision pretty quick. Like he flips pretty quick, and I just wish we got to see him kind of worry about it or kind of oscillate between whether he should or shouldn't.
I see.
And I wish you kind of had you kind of get one scene with Elsa kind of begging and saying like, all right, well, I love you and I'll stay with you. Just send Victor. And then
she even pulls a gun.
Yeah. So, but I just wish there was more, not manipulation on her part, but I just wish there was more interaction between those two before he finally kind of pulled the trigger. But I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very cool, very well shot. I don't think I've seen any movie with Humphrey Bogart. I thought he was, commanding on the screen, and it's very interesting to compare this to what we're going to compare it with To Have and Have Not, because he is so, like, he's almost like James Bond a little bit in this movie. Like, he's very suave and sophisticated, and then the next movie he's supposed to play like a sailor, and it's just like, whoa, I can't see Bogey. Like, it's hard for me to kind of hold these two images of him in my mind. But I thought it was pretty cool. I do think, like, I feel like maybe this is a of its time kind of thing. But I do feel like the ending is kind of abrupt. I just felt like it just came really fast, and I wish there was more time built up to that. But
yeah, but I mean,
That's,
I guess that makes sense because you
yeah.
kind of wish the movie was a little bit longer and kind of you had a little bit more time to
yeah,
digest.
I just wanted more. I just wanted more back and forth with Rick and Elsa, and I wanted more back and forth with Rick and Victor. Like I thought the dynamic was so good and so interesting. I just wish they would have, it would have had it. But that's. I mean, I really like the movie. Though that's me like really just picking nits when I.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think?
This movie, I don't really envy you because I saw this movie a long time ago. But even then, I mean, I was fully aware of how critically lauded this film was. It's so difficult to watch a movie like this that tops a lot of critics' top 10 lists. Same thing with Citizen Kane or whatever. It's hard to kind of suppress your expectations, and I mean it's impossible really because you're like, I know everybody loves this movie. It's almost you feel like everybody's kind of staring at you like what are they going to think about what I think about this movie. A little bit of story time here. When I was in the early days of college and I was just kind of starting to get into film, I had a buddy that was in college and Casablanca was his favorite movie.
Oh, interesting.
And this guy was my friend. I don't still keep in contact with him today just because, life has moved on or whatever. But I've actually seen him on television a couple of times because he's an extra in some things from time to time.
I know this person is.
but anyway, he loved Casablanca. But I always felt like it was so pretentious. Like he just was saying it to like almost like get girls or something like that. He's like, hey, my favorite movie is Casablanca, and the girls would be like, oh, that's so romantic.
He's
or whatever.
So deep.
And I was like,
He's
does
so
he
thoughtful.
exactly?
Yeah.
I was like, does he really like Casablanca that much, or is it all just a bunch of show? So I actually refused to watch it for the longest time because I hadn't seen it at that point. He's like, you should watch Casablanca with me. You should watch. And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want to watch it. Like I feel like this is just an act that you're putting on or whatever. So I put it off, probably stupidly, but I put it off for several years, and then I finally probably got around to watching it in my mid-20s. But again, like I say, at the time I was like, gosh, I don't want to I don't know how to feel about this movie, but I did like it then. But again, seeing it now 20 odd years later, I think I liked it more. And I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a great film. I don't think either one of us would ever put it on our top movie of all time, but
that's well, I don't want to interrupt your what you're saying. It's because when you're saying that made me think. So you said like a lot of critics rank it as their top movie, but I wonder how many of those critics would rank it in their favorite movie.
Yeah,
because I think
there's a distinction probably there. Yeah.
I wonder how many people actually have this as their favorite movie because it's a good movie. It's a really good movie, but I don't know if I'd ever put this in like a favorite of category. I don't know what makes me think a movie is favorite. And, we kind of had this conversation. Sometimes like it feels like maybe things you were introduced to at a certain period of time end up being your favorite because maybe you're more malleable or things are new and different there. But, on our favorites list, I have movies that I've seen, at a later age that are on that list because they're that good. I don't know if I'd ever put that on a favorite list, but I do think it's a really good movie. So it just kind of made me think about that when you were talking about the critics and your friend and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and again, I mean, I'm basing that off of a lot of like older critics. Like I have no idea what Roger Ebert's favorite film or number one film of all time was, but people kind of that era, I would say, I doubt that most modern critics or most modern bloggers or whatever, because a lot of critics are just online. YouTubers, whatever. I mean, I don't know what they think. Maybe they think Shawshank Redemption is the best movie, because it's newer, it's whatever. So
Shawshank's pretty good.
So things like that. But anyway, I think no matter what though, whether it's your favorite film of all time or you would rank it number one or whatever, I think most people can agree this is a really great film. I love a lot of the cast. I love kind of the international feel of it, and honestly, I had to turn on the subtitles because some of those guys' accents, I was like, what is he saying? But it's very authentic sounding because. Apparently at the time, I'm not a big war historian or anything like that, but apparently at the time, in the area where they're at, in Casablanca, it was just a melting pot. And you had all these people, these refugees that were trying, the ultimate goal was to get to Lisbon, Portugal, because it was neutral, and from there take a ship to the United States or a plane or whatever. And they had to get visas. and it was difficult for them. So some of them have been there for years, kind of just stranded. But again, you have all these people that have different accents and are speaking different languages or whatever. But I felt that. I mean, I felt like it was very authentic, but it was a little bit hard for me to discern what they were saying some of the time.
I agree with you. I think the setting is awesome. Like, I want to know more about that. It's just not something I've been exposed to before, but exactly what you said about it, being kind of, being part of France under Vichy, but also, having, the Nazis just invaded Paris. So there's some Nazis there. Like, I just want to know more about what life was like in that little town or in those areas. So I just found that so fascinating.
So the rest of the cast, obviously we mentioned Humphrey Bogart plays Rick Blaine. Ingrid Bergman is Ilsa Lund. The guy playing Victor Laszlo is a guy named Paul Henry. He did another movie the same year as Casablanca called Now Voyager with Bette Davis, which is also considered a classic, although I've actually not seen that. I could add that to my list.
I've never heard of it.
Rounding out the cast, we've got Conrad Veidt. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. He's Major Strasser, who's kind of the villain, the Nazi of the movie, or the main Nazi. Sidney Greenstreet is kind of the heavy guy that plays Signor Ferrari. He actually did a lot of other movies with Humphrey Bogart. Little Peter Lorre is Ugarte, and he's the guy that has the letters of transit, which... How did he acquire them? Did he murder the two German couriers? Don't know.
We never know.
Dooley Wilson is Sam, the piano player who is told to play as time goes by. And then finally, my favorite character. I love Humphrey Bogart in this movie, like you said. He's the suave, cool character. He has some great lines. But my favorite character is Claude Rains. Who?
Oh, who's Claude?
Claude Rains is Captain Renault.
Yeah.
Because he has some of the best lines. So he's in The Invisible Man. He is the Invisible Man, but we don't see him. See what I did there? We don't see him very much in The Invisible Man.
That's
we just see him at the end.
I was thinking, like, was he an Invisible Man? Then I was like, wait, I didn't see him.
You only see him at the very end of The Invisible Man, but he's all through this movie. He is the corrupt French official there who lets Rick, do his gambling and run things away as long as he gets free drinks, as long as he wins at roulette and all this other stuff. I love the line. So there's a part in the movie where the Germans are singing a German song in Rick's cafe, and Victor Laszlo, he gets pissed at this, he goes over and tells the band to play La Marseillaise, the French anthem. And so they start playing it, soon they drown out the Germans. Well, Major Strasser gets pissed, and so he tells Captain Renault, shut this place down. And so Captain Renault's like, all right, everybody out, everybody get out of here, whatever. And Humphrey Bogart is like, hey, you can't shut me down. Like, you need some kind of,
you need a reason.
You need a reason. Yeah. And he's like, I can't believe you've got gambling here. And the guy runs up and he goes, here's your winnings, sir. And he goes, oh, thank you very much. All right, everybody out. You
got gambling here.
Yeah, he has priceless lines. I really, really love Claude Rains in this movie. He's great. And he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, as well as Humphrey Bogart was nominated for Best Actor for Casablanca. But yeah, really, really great stuff.
Yeah, I nothing but positive things for this movie.
The other thing I was going to say, well, again, I kind of mentioned the dialogue in this film. So we said at the beginning of the episode, they don't actually say "play it again, Sam." That's an often misquoted line, but that's fine. I mean, who cares? But some of the other quotes that originate from this movie.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Here's looking at you, kid. I think that this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. We're going to round up the usual suspects. We'll always have Paris, and then of all the gin joints and all the towns in the world, she walks into mine. So there's some really, really great dialogue. Obviously, a lot of these lines because AFI has like
beans one too.
Oh yeah, it doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Yeah. But yeah, so really, really quotable dialogue, really, really great stuff. But yeah, it's a great film. One of the other interesting thing about this movie is it was released in late 1942. But it didn't, I guess, get a wider release until early 1943. So they actually included it in the Best Picture nominees for 1943, which they would never do that now. As long as it opens in a theater in this year, it's eligible for this year. But because of it didn't get a wide release until 1943, and it actually won Best Picture for 1943, even though it came out in 1942. And of course, now with COVID-19, they're talking about doing all kinds of crazy things with the Oscars because everything's being released streaming. Yeah. So apparently that stuff's going to be eligible. So that should be kind of interesting. Nominated for Best Picture, nominated for Best Director, Actor, Supporting Actor, Screenplay, Cinematography, Editing, and Score. It won for Best Picture. It won for Best Director, and I didn't mention the director's name. His name is Michael Curtiz. It won for a Screenplay. and that was it. So, yeah, it's good,
Very cool.
good stuff. And one other thing that I saw that I thought was kind of interesting, Bogart, because when I saw him on screen, he looked like he was about the same height as Ingrid Bergman. Apparently, she was about 5'9", and he was only about 5'8". So they were saying, yeah, that's what I read. Is that like when he was sitting down next to her, he had to like be sitting on cushions to make himself appear taller.
That's what I do. So I look taller in the podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish no. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting because I was like, they look kind of the same height, which apparently he was actually a little bit shorter than her. But Peter Lorre, the guy that plays Ugarte, he's a German actor because he has that crazy, hey Reek, what are you doing?
He reminds me a lot of Young Frankenstein.
The Marty Feldman guy. Yeah. But he was in Fritz Lang's M, which is a really great German film before Fritz Lang came over to America and started making movies. And if Peter Lorre is in my opinion, the absolute best Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode, also starring Steve McQueen, called Man from the South, where Steve McQueen has to light the lighter 10 times in a row without it missing.
Never heard of it.
Great stuff. Peter Lorre's in that episode. The guy that plays Sam, Dooley Wilson, he was in Stormy Weather with Lena Horne after this. As time goes by, I was looking at how many times has that been used in a movie? A shitload. A lot of times. But anyway, and then Ingrid Bergman, finally, she was in a couple of movies before this. She was in Intermezzo, but this is kind of the movie that launched her American career because she had been in other Swedish films. But yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad we watched it.
And we paired this, and we'll talk about it next time, with another Humphrey Bogart movie. Came out 2 years after this one in 1944, and has pretty similar plot, I would say, right? Yeah. That's kind of why we chose it, and that's To Have and Have Not. So we'll talk about that one next time.
All right, guys. So that was our review.
99% fresh,
yes,
and 95% audience score. All right, I'm done.
All right, guys. Anything else? No,
that's it. Well, the 99%, there was one rotten review.
Who was it?
And some guy I've never heard of. And I didn't. When I clicked to read the full review, it took me to some site that it didn't actually have it on there. But the one word that was there was, I think, overblown. Overblown. That was his review.
All right.
Anyway.
All right, guys. That was our review on Casablanca. Like Andy said, stay tuned next because we're going to review To Have and Have Not. If you've seen Casablanca and you think it's awesome, shoot us an email at Real Shame. If you're watching us on YouTube, leave a comment below.
And if you hate it,
let us know.
I'd be interested to hear what your take is.
For sure. Follow us on social media, Real Shame. And stay tuned because we'll come back at you with another bogey movie to have and have not. Thank you, guys. See you soon.